Our lesson today is going to take place out of the practice packet, so make sure that you're in the probability and statistics practice packet. Today we're going to have an introduction to statistics. Statistics is the study of numerical data. There are 3 typical steps in a statistical study. Okay, step 1, the first thing that you need to do is collect your data. Whatever it is that you're studying, you're going to have to collect some data in order to be able to analyze it, okay? Step number 2, you're going to organize the data into tables, charts, and graphs. Okay, and depending upon what kind of data it is, there's a bunch of different types of graphs that we could make. And then step 3, after we've made our tables, our charts, and our graphs, we're going to draw conclusions from the analysis of the data. Okay, and there's 2 different types of data that we can work with. Data can either be qualitative or it can be quantitative. Qualitative data deals with descriptions. Okay, qualitative data deals with descriptions or qualities. Okay, qualities that something has. This is data that can be observed but not measured. Okay, so again, qualitative data deals with descriptions or qualities. It's data that you can observe, but it's not necessarily data that can be measured. Okay, quantitative data, however, deals with numbers. Okay, quantitative data deals with numbers or quantities. Okay, you can see in the root word here of quantitative, quantity. Quantity means numbers. Okay, this is data that can be measured. Data that can be measured. Okay, and so we have a couple of examples underneath. Okay, in our first example, a restaurant may ask customers to rate the meal that was served as excellent, very good, good, fair, or poor. We want to know what kind of data this ranking system would be. Okay, and you can see by these words that they use, excellent, very good, good, fair, poor, that these are how you would describe a meal. Okay, you're describing the meal in these ways. Okay, and data that deals with descriptions or qualities is called qualitative data. Okay, so this type of a survey is qualitative. The data that you would get from this would be qualitative data. Okay, a restaurant makes a record of each customer tip at different times of the day. Okay, so they're looking at the bill, they're seeing what the customer leaves for a tip. Tip you can record as money. Okay, so data that deals with, excuse me, the tip can be recorded as numbers. So data that deals with numbers would be called quantitative data. Quantitative. Okay, so if it's a description, call it qualitative data. But if it's something that you can gather with numbers, then you're going to call it quantitative data. So underneath, all right, in A through J, I'm going to have you go ahead and determine if the data would be called qualitative data, is it a description, or is it quantitative data? You can record it with a number. In a lot of surveys that get done, rather than asking every single person of a population, you're going to ask a smaller sample of the population. And something that you want to avoid is what is called bias. Okay, and that might be a word that you have heard before. All right, when we talk about bias with a survey, this is when a sample does not accurately represent when a sample does not accurately represent the population. Okay, bias is when a sample does not accurately represent the population. All right, bias causes misleading results. Bias causes misleading results. And so if you have a survey, if you're taking a survey, you want to avoid bias because you don't want the results of your survey to be misleading. And so when you're viewing statistics, there's a few things that you should consider. Who collected the data? Okay. Another thing that you want to know is the study a recent study or is it an old study? Okay. Did it take place, a year ago, or did the study take place 50 years ago? Okay, the more recent the study, the better off the data probably is going to be. What was the sample size? Meaning, how many people participated in the survey? Did they only ask 10 people or did they ask 10,000 people? It all depends on what you're trying to go for, but in general, the larger the sample size, the better. And does the sample contain a reasonable number of items that are being tested? Okay, so when you're getting your sample, you always want to make sure, does your sample accurately represent the population or is there some bias? Okay, and so that's what we're going to investigate in the next set down here. In each case, a sample of students is to be selected and the height of each student is to be measured to determine the average height of a student in high school. For each sample, we're going to tell if the sample is biased or unbiased. And if the sample is biased, we're going to explain how this might affect the outcome of the survey. Okay, so it's important to remember the goal of the survey is to determine the average height of a student in high school. Okay, so we have to think about the different samples that we could ask. Our first sample is going to be the basketball team. Okay, all we're going to do is go to people that are on the basketball team and record their height, and we're going to use this data to determine the average height of a student in high school. Okay, so would this be biased or would this be unbiased? Okay, well, if you're trying to get the average height of a student in high school and you ask the basketball team, this is probably going to be a biased sample. Okay, this is going to be biased, and the reason why, people on the basketball team generally are pretty tall. So if you only looked at the heights of the basketball players, you might think from looking at that survey that every high schooler is pretty tall. And that's not very accurate. Okay? Letter B. Suppose that your sample was just the senior class. Okay, well remember, we want the average height of a student in high school. Would asking the senior class be representative of the entire population, all high school students? And the answer to that is no. So this is going to be a biased sample as well. This is a biased sample because they didn't include all members of the population. They didn't include freshmen, they didn't include sophomores or juniors. They only looked at the senior class. Okay? If we wanted the height of a senior in high school, this would be good. But not every student in high school is part of the senior class. Okay, letter C. If we only sample 14-year-old students, so we're going to first figure out if they're 14 years old. If they are, then we're going to record their height. Would this be a biased sample or an unbiased sample? And the answer again to this would be a biased sample. Again, because we're trying to get the average height of a student in high school, not every high school student is a 14-year-old. So you're eliminating all the 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, okay? You want to try to get a sample that's representative of the entire population. Suppose that our sample was all the girls. We only got the heights of the girls in high school, okay? Is this biased or unbiased? Well, again, this is going to be a biased sample. And again, because we're trying to get the average height of a student in high school, not every student is a girl. You're eliminating the boys if you only use the girls here. So that's going to be a biased sample. Letter E says, what if our sample was every 10th person selected from an alphabetical list of all students? Okay, so we're going to take an alphabetical list of every student in the school, in the high school, and we're going to go to every 10th person and we're going to record their height. Would this be biased or unbiased? Well, this is actually a really good way to do this. This is unbiased. This is an unbiased sample. And the reason why it's unbiased is because each student has an equal chance. Each student has an equal chance of being selected for the survey. Okay, every student has an equal chance of being selected for the survey. This is completely random. And that's good, okay? Whenever we're randomly selecting people, the more likely it is that our sample is going to be representative of the entire population. So that's a really good way to do this. We're randomly picking every 10th person from an alphabetical list of all students. Okay, and letter F, we're going to select every 5th person selected from an alphabetical list of all boys. And starting off, this sounds pretty good. Every 5th person selected from an alphabetical list. This is all really good, but then it's only the boys that we're looking at. And so this is going to be a biased sample. Again, because we're trying to get the average height of a student in high school, not every student is a boy. Okay, letter G. The first 3 students who enter each homeroom on Tuesday. Okay, so again, we've got to ask ourselves, is this biased or unbiased? Well, every student is in a homeroom, and every student has a chance to be one of the first 3 in homeroom, so this is going to be an unbiased sample as well. This is going to be unbiased. The first 3 in every homeroom, it's likely going to be that the results, we're going to get a representative sample of the entire population. In the next example, we're told that a reporter surveys people leaving an ice hockey game and asks them whether they agree that the rink is old and run down and should be destroyed to make room for a new Shop Mart store. Why might the data that this reporter collects be biased? Okay, this reporter did not do a good job picking their sample. Okay, they're asking hockey fans if they want the rink to be destroyed and replaced with the store. Well, this is going to lead to bias, okay? This is biased because hockey fans will not want the rink replaced with a store. The results will conclude that the rink should not be destroyed. Okay, so their sample is not representative of the entire population. They should probably also ask people that are not hockey fans. They shouldn't be right outside of the rink also asking those people. In example 4, they say that every 10th customer who enters Pet Lover's Pet Store is asked whether they believe that the penalties for animal cruelty should be more severe. Do you believe this survey will result in biased or unbiased data? Okay, and it sounds like it's random. It says every 10th customer, okay, but it's people that are entering Pet Lover's Pet Store. So these are likely people that own pets. Okay, and if you're asking these people if they think that the penalties for animal cruelty should be more severe, you're probably going to get data that would agree with that, which means that this is a biased sample. Okay, the results will be biased because people that own pets will likely agree that the penalties for animal cruelty should be more severe. Okay, the person that's doing this survey should probably pick a different location, a more neutral location, and make sure that they're not getting people that are pet owners. Number 5 says at Northern High School, the girls lacrosse team was asked how they felt the athletic department should spend a $4,000 gift that they received. Do you think that this is a fair survey of how the money should be spent? Okay, so you're asking a lacrosse team how the athletic department should spend $4,000. Well, the lacrosse team is probably going to want the money spent on them, so this is not going to be a fair survey. Okay, this is not a fair survey because the lacrosse team will likely request that the gift be spent on the lacrosse program. Okay, you're eliminating all other sports. You never ask the baseball teams or the basketball teams or the football teams, okay? Those sports might think that this is not a fair way to do this, okay? So this is going to lead to biased data. Our last question says for 1 week, every 3rd customer who makes a purchase at McBurger is asked a quick 2-question survey regarding their favorite menu item and what would they most like to see added to the menu. Do you believe that the results of this survey will be valid? Okay, so McBurger is only interested in what their customers think, so they're only going to ask their customers. Okay, also they're asking every 3rd customer, so it is completely random. So this is actually going to be a really good sample. Okay, the results are going to be valid. The sample is representative of the population, which is customers of the restaurant. And the sample is collected randomly. Each person has an equal chance to be included in the survey. Okay, and so that's what you're going for when you want to try to make a survey. Is it completely random? Is it representative of the population? And does everybody have an equal chance to be included in the survey? Always avoid bias when collecting your data.